while the weather is not normal this year, neither is this year's World Cup. The oddities, of course, began with the President of the United States getting a made-up FIFA World Peace Prize in December. But the outrages have mounted as the fawning by FIFA presidents, that's Gianni Infantino, over Donald Trump, haven't just made FIFA look ridiculous, let's say. They've actually affected what happens on the pitch. This is what's really driven everyone mad. So the first major footballing injustice concerned a Somali referee who was scheduled to referee at a number of matches at the World Cup, but whose visa was denied. FIFA didn't do anything to stand up to Donald Trump. The next victims of Donald Trump's avarice were the Iranian football team, who were only allowed to fly to their matches the night before games and had to leave immediately afterwards. They didn't get to do a cool down. That put them at a severe disadvantage. Again, FIFA did nothing. But the latest example of Trump putting his thumbs on the footballing scale has caused an even bigger outrage. This is Folarin Balogun. He's been the United States' top scorer at this World Cup. But the US's last 32 match against Bosnia, or at that match, Balogun got a red card by FIFA's own rules. They're very long-standing rules. They've been around for a while. They're very well understood by fans. That means that Balogun must miss his next game. So you get sent off for one game and then you're suspended for the following game. Now, that following game would be tonight's last 16 match against Belgium. But Donald Trump had other ideas. He wanted him to play. So he called Gianni Infantino, asked for the suspension to be overturned, and he got his way. So Gianni Infantino answered the call, said, maybe it seems like maybe we can overturn it. Maybe we can change the rules for you. The ban has been lifted. He can play this evening. Trump celebrated on Truth Social, so he's never very subtle. He said, "Thank you, FIFA, for doing what was right and reversing a great injustice, President Donald J. Trump." Now, all the papers have reported that the decision followed a call from Donald Trump to Infantino, so this isn't just speculation. This is confirmed. And the response has been very strong. So this was the response from UEFA. So UEFA is the European Football Association. They said, "Yesterday's decision to suspend for a probationary period of a year the implementation of the one-match automatic suspension following the red card issued to player Folarin Balogun crossed a red line. Football, like any other sport, relies on rules, which are the basis for fair, honest and transparent competition. Sometimes rules are open to interpretation. In this case, not. A minimum automatic suspension of one match following a red card is not a discretionary option. We express our disbelief at such an unprecedented, incomprehensible and unjustifiable decision." So that's from one football association to another. The England manager, Thomas Tuchel, is also unimpressed.
Could Harry maybe ask Donald Trump,
where does this start and where does this end now? Can we overturn it or not overturn it, or
what is that something that
what is going on?
We'll seek to pursue, because, like you say, there's surely a chance. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, where to draw the line is the question that I ask. I have no answer to that. Where does this end now? Do we appeal if a yellow card is not a yellow card? Do we think it's not a red card, or who thinks it? Where does this start and where does this end? Is my question. I don't have an answer.
Could Harry maybe ask Donald Trump to?
Maybe, yeah. That's a good starting point.
Tuchel always seems very calm, somewhat reassuring when the England manager seems calm, level-headed fellow. Gary Neville, I suppose, seemed a little bit more heated.
It absolutely stinks, let's be really clear. But what I would say is the thing that stinks the most is there should be a review process in place, because I actually didn't think it was a red card, and I think there should be a process which allows it to be overturned. But if there's no process for it to be overturned, and then somehow FIFA from nowhere have just decided to basically let a player play, and the rules are the same for everybody, I would be absolutely raging if I was Belgium and every other team in the tournament that's had a player sent off that might think it's a little bit hard done to. And do you know something, Mark? Are we surprised? No, not with this lot.
No.
Even the former head of FIFA, who himself resigned after a corruption scandal involving how Qatar and Russia got their respective World Cups, he thinks this is a step too fast. This is a tweet from Sepp Blatter. Red cards are not overturned by political phone calls. They are overturned by rules, evidence, and independent bodies. If a US president intervenes with the FIFA president and a player is suddenly cleared before a World Cup knockout match, the question is unavoidable. Quo vadis, FIFA? Football must never become a playground for political power. Ash, Gianni Infantino he's too corrupt even for Sepp Blatter.
For Sepp Blatter.
Sepp Blatter denies any allegations of corruption, I'm sure, but his reputation is not untarnished, just for legal reasons there. Ash.
I mean, so look, I would say that for FIFA, this is plumbing new depths rather than opening up a brand new frontier. And I am going to talk a little bit about the history of FIFA, but to just talk about this overturning of the red card or the sort of suspension of the one match ban for a period of a year, which is completely ridiculous, is that harsh reds. And I did think that it was a harsh red for Balogun. I didn't think that, I think that you would have grounds to feel hard done by, but harsh reds are a part of the game, right? They are a part of the game. I thought that the penalty that was awarded to Mexico for Harry Kane making contact in the box was an absurdly soft pen. So would that mean that Keir Starmer would be able to ring up FIFA after the match was done and was like, okay, no, you actually have to disallow that goal, even though this was a call that was made by the ref and by VAR, right? I'm going to go over your head. Because then it basically means that any on the pitch call is completely meaningless. And I do think that it's really quite revealing that FIFA haven't offered any kind of explanation, right? With VAR, you have to offer an explanation. With on the pitch calls, the ref now has to give an explanation for why he's reached the conclusion that he has. And you can disagree with it. You could say, oh, that's really harsh. Or you could talk about, oh, that's not a handball. The arm wasn't in an unnatural position or whatever. But it's on the pitch and someone has to give their reasoning. So I think the fact that FIFA hasn't given their reasoning, I think speaks absolute volumes about what has gone on. And I know that there are going to be people who say that, well, preferential treatment is also part of, top flight football, whether it's at the club level or at the international level. And that's true, right? There's a reason why Harry Kane dives like a beautiful Olympic swimmer. It's because there is such a thing as preferential treatment. But there is such a huge difference between that being part of on the pitch decision making and that being taken outside of it into FIFA governance itself, and it becomes something which politicians can interfere in. And this is a really big deal. I know that we're going to talk a bit about Ronaldo and some of the decisions that were made by FIFA in the lead up to this World Cup. But the last time a World Cup red was overturned using Article 27 was 1962. So it is an astonishingly rare occurrence. And then when you go back and you look at all the other kinds of interference by Donald Trump in the match, in the sort of playing of the football itself, whether it's through the Iranian team or the imposition of hydration breaks. So basically American corporations can get their commercials on, changing it from a game of two quarters to two halves, to a game of 4 quarters. I mean, it just shows how disgustingly servile Gianni Infantino and FIFA have been in the face of American power. And we've talked about the FIFA Peace Prize, which was basically Donald Trump, here is something to make up for you never getting a Nobel Prize, and here is a sort of shiny bauble for you so that you don't interfere with like the Iranian team being able to travel or whatever. That wasn't enough. The other thing, which I actually think is in some ways a bigger scandal, because I don't really have a problem with FIFA offering Trump a bauble. Do you know what I mean? Like, here is a special participation trophy for you, Mr. President. FIFA opened up an office in Trump Tower in Manhattan, which was basically unused. So it was just a way for FIFA to funnel money directly into the Trump family coffers, which I think is completely disgusting. And then you can talk about the World Cup draw. FIFA originally was going to host it in one location, then moved it to the Kennedy Center after Trump suggested it. So moved from Las Vegas to the Kennedy Center. And then they played the YMCA by the Village People. I think they actually got the Village People to come and perform YMCA at the draw specifically for Donald Trump. Here's your theme music, Mr. President. So this whole thing has been completely embarrassing. There has been no attempt to say there is such a thing as fair competition, and the rules of fair competition will be in place even in the face of American power. There has just been sort of fold after fold after fold in the face of what it is that Donald Trump wants, in a way which is absolutely a new low for FIFA. It's not brand new, but it is a new low.
You mentioned Article 27 there. So that is so FIFA justify, as you said, they didn't justify why in this particular instance, this red card or this suspension or this ban should be suspended. But they did say, look at this part of our constitution, which says we can do this, or our rule book. And it's Article 27, which basically says FIFA can decide whatever they want. Basically, it said FIFA can decide whatever they want about any ban at any point. It's a bit like, when you go into any sort of eating establishment or bar, they say like, we reserve the right to kick people out for whatever reason we want. It's like the organisation says, well, we've reserved the right to do anything. So here we are doing anything. We've reserved the right to make arbitrary decisions. You mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. So he's come up a lot sort of during this controversy because he is another player who FIFA seemed to make exceptions for. So in the qualifiers for the World Cup, Ronaldo got a red card. I think he was playing Ireland, which this particular one should have seen him miss 3 games. 2 of those matches would be at the World Cup finals. However, in November last year, that ban was also overturned. Now, when I'd initially seen this, I thought, okay, so maybe this isn't so much a politics story. Maybe this is just FIFA changed the rules for high-profile players, essentially for TV rights, right? There'll be people who aren't really football fans, but they want to see the famous people. And FIFA think that if you have a World Cup where some of the biggest stars aren't able to play, that would damage the World Cup brand. And so they're saying, well, it's not quite fair, but we don't want the World Cup without a big player. However, it turns out that there is a political connection here as well, because guess who Cristiano Ronaldo visited 3 days before that unprecedented decision by FIFA? Yes, that's right, Donald J. Trump. So here Cristiano Ronaldo is in the White House with Donald J. Trump. They're having a great time. Ronaldo was visiting the White House for a state dinner for Mohammed bin Salman, so the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And can you guess who else was in attendance? That's right. You can see here, standing in between Elon Musk and David Sachs at the back. It's a selfie taken by Cristiano Ronaldo. It's Gianni Infantino. So Ash, this doesn't seem like the first time that Donald Trump has been able to say, can't you just sort something out for this guy? I like him.
The best way to understand Donald Trump's America is that everything is wrestling. Everything is WWE. Everything is sports entertainment because there's no real love of the game, right? It's about the spectacle. And I think that's why Ronaldo gets this preferential treatment of not having to serve out a 3-match ban for violent conduct. He threw an elbow up at a Republic of Ireland player, I believe it was. So that is a straight red. That is violent conduct. That is missing 3 matches. I've had to like it and lump it when it's players who I rate who've had to serve a 3-match ban, right? And that's, again, part of the game. Managing your yellows, not getting a red, not straying into violent conduct or dangerous play, that is part of the game of football. But the way in which Donald Trump sees it, and I think the way in which an increasing number of Americans see it, is that it is like wrestling in that you always want to see The Rock at WrestleMania. It doesn't really matter how old he is. You'd always rather see The Rock than not see The Rock. Because it's not actually about, is this someone at the peak of their athletic performance? All right, as good as Messi is, as good as some of his performances have been for Argentina this World Cup, as good as Ronaldo is, and as good as some of his performances have been, but actually less good, they're clearly not at their best, but they're the GOATs, right? The greatest of all time. So it's like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. They are these names which have become bigger than the sport. They are a spectacle. So like Hulk Hogan or like The Rock, Trump says, well, of course I want to see these guys. They're the best guys because they're the biggest names. They're obviously not the best footballers, but they are the biggest names. And this deep down is why I didn't think that the United States of America should host a World Cup. It's not just because you have to stay up late to watch matches, although I do also resent that. I think it's because their sports culture is fundamentally irreconcilable with ours. They are sports entertainment. They are wrestling. They are a World Series which doesn't involve players from any other countries, and that's who they are. They don't actually have a tradition of international competition in the same way. So you take something like basketball in the NBA. When are they playing other countries apart from, Canada? It's during the Olympics. And, that's not really a huge deal. It's not like the World Cup, right? Like the dream team participating in the Olympics is not as big as winning a World Cup for your country, right? Gridiron football, aka American football, doesn't have a tradition of international competition in the same way. So I know that for lots of people it's about ice, and for lots of people it's about the politics. And I do have objections to that too. But I do just think that Americans, they don't have any love of the game. All right. And they do great stuff. All right. I love the fact that the Super Bowl is mostly a Beyonce concert. I think that's fab. I love watching WWE. Stick to what you're good at and fuck off from football. We don't want you. We don't need you.
I mean, FIFA do have such a good thing going for themselves because they have a monopoly over the World Cup. They're like a private organization based in Switzerland, which is one of the reasons they're so untransparent. So as far as I understand, the reason it's been able to continue as so corrupt is because each country gets one vote, and it's quite easy to basically bribe the smaller countries. Yeah. At least, not necessarily cash in envelopes, but maybe by investment or whatever. And the same thing happens every World Cup, which is people are complaining about FIFA before the World Cup and sort of say, oh, they've ruined the World Cup, yada, yada, yada. And the World Cup happens, and obviously the World Cup is going to be amazing because the World Cups are always amazing. So it's like you can mismanage your organization so badly, you can be so openly corrupt, but you happen to have one of the best products in the world that literally just cannot fail. And it's like it is like a golden goose. However much they abuse it, it's still going to lay golden eggs.
I mean, and this is where the history of FIFA is really important, because the single most important figure in the history of FIFA's development is João de Havilland. So João de Havilland was the person who turned FIFA into the kind of big money entity that we recognize today. And the way in which he did it was all in the name of bringing the game to poorer countries. And it is absolutely true that FIFA becoming this much more global entity has sort of brought football infrastructure and sort of been able to celebrate the national game and footballing heritage of many, many countries in the global south. And that's been a good thing. I think that the South Africa World Cup was actually a really big turnaround for being able to better integrate African football into the sort of global pyramid of competition. And you're really seeing that with the quality of players that come from the continent of Africa today, right? That's why the quality of football has been so sick, because the infrastructure has been built to be able to identify those incredible players who are always there. But João de Havilland also had to resign because of corruption. Right, he had to step down as honorary president of FIFA in 2013 because it'd been found that he'd just been taking loads of bribes. And so at the time when he was taking bribes, it wasn't a crime, but it was obviously crooked. Do you know what I mean? Something can be crooked without being a crime. And then you've got, Sepp Blatter, you've got Platini, and all of these figures who were, they had their reputations affected by the 2015 corruption scandal, which is the one that you're talking about, in which 14 individuals were indicted on a range of charges, from wire fraud to bribery and all this kind of thing. And 9 people, including FIFA executives, accepted guilty pleas. Now, Sepp Blatter, I have to say, was not one of them. I don't think that Platini was either. So, don't sue me. I've said that you also deny all wrongdoing, etc., etc. But that has been the direction of travel for FIFA. It seems to only become, more and more mired in this kind of corruption scandal. And then Trump just attached turbo boosters onto it. And I do think that sometimes, though, they do try and push football fans too far. I mean, you said it's an amazing product, and it is, right? The quality of football has been incredible. I also think that the expansion, so that there were more teams playing in this one, was a good idea. I think World Cup should be a true World Cup. Let every fucking country on the, planet play. Let it last, months and months and months, and, give us all time off for it. I thought that was actually a good thing. But I think that when they tried to do the European Super League, when Big teams, Real Madrid, PSG, Barcelona, Spurs, for some reason, all tried to get together and say, we're going to have this sort of alternative to the Champions League, which again is more sports entertainment because it's the big names, regardless of actually how well those clubs are doing. The fans pushed back. So I do think that there is a certain kind of corruption which people find disgusting and distasteful, but it doesn't offend almost like the spirit of fair play in the same way, right? So like, the bribery scandals and stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, still going to watch the World Cup. But when you're interfering with the game itself, that's the point where football fans go, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, if this guy scores like the winning goal against Belgium, there's going to be havoc. There's going to be hell to pay. It'll be an exciting match.
Yeah, it's going to be how good is the Belgian army? Do you think they can mount a land invasion of the United States or not?
I suppose that's the issue, isn't it? Donald Trump knows he's got the ultimate backup, which is the American military. So maybe that's why he's so confident doing this kind of thing.